I think I don't know if it's Shankaracharya or somebody who says that doesn't matter how you find the infinite, how you become enlightened, how you achieve union, doesn't matter how, but do it. That's kind of his quotes, very loosely quoted. But so that's what I think is so worthwhile, that the infinite is something that you can't imagine. It's nice, it's great. Not from my experience, but I've had some degrees of that. So definitely seek that out. And yeah, that's all.
All right, Adi Asaya, thank you so much for being on the show. It's great to have you. I was taking a look at some of your YouTube content there. I was even reading over your descriptor. It says that you have over 10,000 hours of meditation put in. That's pretty wild. Maybe you could let our audience in on some of your content, who you are, and what that's all about.
Yeah, so actually my friend Shiva, who you guys interviewed before, made it known to me that that 10,000 hours might actually be a little bit off, so I might need to go and edit that a little bit because we were doing the calculations and it was like that would mean that for the 10 years I would have to meditate like 3 hours every single day. It was just kind of a guess, me putting it in there. So I was like, oh, for sure 10,000 hours. But it might be a little bit less than that, so it's a little bit
We
generous.
won't hold you
But
to it. If
yeah,
it's even
it's
anything
yeah.
close to that, that's a feat. Or anywhere
Yeah.
near there. 1,000
Yeah.
hours is a lot.
Um, but yeah, so basically I just make content about spirituality, meditation, all that kind of stuff. Actually, a lot of the content on my main channel right now is about semen retention and nofap and all the stuff related to that. Um, yeah, because that's kind of been what's pretty good with like the YouTube algorithm and whatnot. So I've been doing a lot of that and also building a Discord community, which is going. It's nice. Slowly growing alongside everything I'm trying to build. And yeah, but mostly on the main channel, focusing on semen retention. And then on the other channel, it's also spirituality, more casual vlogs and just casual kind of talks, discourses, spiritual ideas. And yeah, so that's kind of what I'm about. Yeah.
I think it was one of your recent posts. You had mentioned that you had not too long ago done a Vipassana retreat, which is pretty intense meditation retreat. To be honest, I gave it a shot and I could not do it. It was too much for me. I was like, no, I'm not ready for this. But maybe you could tell us a little bit about that experience and what you learned from it.
Yeah. Vipassana is crazy. It's very intense, especially like when we went on this Vipassana, there's many people coming in who had never meditated before. And I was like, wow, yeah, I'm very surprised that you're just like you're definitely getting into something there. So it's not easy. It's 10 days, complete silence. You can't talk with anybody. You're meditating most of the day. Um, and yeah, we did actually, me and this friend I mentioned earlier, Shiva, who's also a content creator, we did two of these retreats. We did actually one luxury kind of Vipassana, which wasn't an official Vipassana through this guy Goenka, who created all these retreats, but it was like a luxury kind of version of that in Bali. And then we did a more a traditional Goenka in Vietnam recently. So yeah, and each of those were 10 days long. And you're basically meditating and scanning the body. So the idea is that that's the idea is that some of the sutras that the Buddha taught, he explained that this was the method in order to attain enlightenment. I don't know specifically too deeply the philosophy behind it, but it's really powerful, really potent.
What was your feeling about the whole situation? Because when I went, it was like it seemed very culty to me. It was like in a dungeon, no windows, dark. They played these like groaning like chants in the background.
It's like
Everyone, it was I
yeah.
was like, this is so creepy. And it was like, and they were like keeping me up. Like I'd get up at 4 a.m. and they wouldn't let me, I'd meditate all day to 9 p.m. They'd feed you twice, and then you try like after a full day of meditation, you can't sleep. So you're like your head's buzzing and so like you sit in your bed till like 4 in the morning and it's like get up and do it again. And it's like I'm getting sleep deprived. I can feel like I don't feel right. I didn't feel right. Like I don't know how you felt, but
Uh, it's it's weird. It's strange. I think like also it's 10 days long and you're doing, all of that which you described.
yeah.
Like you're gonna kind of enter into a different kind of realm, probably even a more suggestible realm. I mean, me personally, I love cults. It's kind of a weird statement to make, but like if the cult isn't like killing people or, anything bad, like I'm fascinated by cults. The organization that I'm kind of a part of, maybe you could say is like a cult. It's called Ananda Marga. Um, I think that if the cult is like a good cult, I remember Joe Rogan kind of had a comedy skit about that. That it's okay, if they're uplifting human beings, making them better human beings, then and also basically all kind of religions are kind of a cults, like
Yeah,
Catholicism,
there's cult dynamics
Hinduism.
in
Yeah.
everything. Politics, business. There's cult dynamics everywhere.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so I mean it was definitely, issues with sleep and all sorts of stuff. Definitely so many people always leave on these retreats. Um, there's a couple people who said that they'd never meditated before, and I was skeptical whether they would stay
Oh,
long, and sure enough,
woo.
they were out. But there's also lots of people who are new and they stuck through the whole thing. So, and so he's also this guy Goenka. You're hearing him speak every single day, and he's doing these spiritual discourses, and so it does kind of get that culty vibe where he's trying to bring you into something, every day he kind of introduces new stuff. So, in a way, it is kind of a cult because there's the more mainstream kind of varieties of Buddhism, and it's becoming more mainstream. But I don't think this specifically was ever a mainstream kind of thing. I think it maybe was, I guess, related to the Thai Buddhist, not Vajrayana, but I don't remember which sect of Buddhism it was, but there's like the three main ones: Vajrayana, Mahayana, and there's one more, Theravada. I think it's a branch of Theravada. So, yeah, yeah,
Don't get me wrong, I'm not opposed to it. I actually find it extremely interesting. I just kind of like sometimes doing things on my own terms. Like I would have rather like the freedom to kind of like do some stuff. Like they took all my stuff. They took my keys, they took my phone, they took my wallet. They took my wallet. I was
That's
like, why do you need my wallet?
it's so hardcore that some people came that had never meditated before.
Yeah,
Like if you're like a
that's
normal
wild.
person and you've never even meditated, like my first times trying meditation were like so uncomfortable. Like you know what I mean? Like holy crap, I didn't realize how busy my head was. And to think of somebody going to a Vipassana is hilarious, but at the same time, I think about that Parks and Rec episode where Ron Swanson, who's like just an outdoorsman or whatever, he gets dragged to a meditation hall. His buddy's like, "Come meditate with me," and he's like a man's man and like an outdoors guy. And the guy, they're all sitting on cushions, and Ron's like standing there holding his jacket to the side. And when it's done, and they're there for like 4 hours, and they go up to him afterwards and they're like, "So, how did you just stand there for 4 hours?" He's like, "I just sat there and didn't think about anything. I don't know what those other clowns were doing." And I love the idea of somebody like accidentally being ahead, you know what I mean, spiritually or whatever, like being ahead in some practice because we do vary in neurosis, like we vary in temperament, it seems like. And for somebody who's just high in neuroticism or and's never meditated before and sits down, it's like, you know, like
yeah.
it's so anguishing it seems like. But then again, it's fun to think of some person that going in cold, didn't know anything about anything, is just like, yeah, I can do it. We're just sitting here. I just don't think.
Heard a lot of interesting stories. We've had a few guys on here go to Vipassana retreats, and like I think both guys in both scenarios said that they had this moment where they like zoned in, like, and it was like all thought was gone, or like their whole sense of self was gone. Did you have any type of an experience like that when you went?
Uh, I would say it's kind of depended for me based on the retreats. I've done three of these. I would say actually for some reason the most recent one I had the least kind of crazy experiences.
Mm.
Definitely, I mean I've been meditating for a long time. But definitely also, on these Vipassana retreats, I have had experiences oftentimes like I think the word is proprioception, like my feeling of my body, like where it is in space and time. If I get like really concentrated, it feels like it's kind of like zooming out and like going up and definitely just kind of bliss, people experience different things. Some people don't feel anything at all. Some people go into Vipassana and I'll ask them, how was it? What did you feel like this crazy kind of stuff? And they're just like, no, I didn't feel anything at all. So that can definitely happen.
Anything at
For
all?
me, yeah.
Not a leg
Yeah,
cramp or
yeah.
anything? Your butt
Well,
wasn't sore? Your back wasn't sore?
yeah. Well, nothing nothing like
Meta.
magical.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy. Um but yeah, for me, also with my tradition that I follow, the meditations that I normally do, you definitely feel a lot of bliss. And it's also, I think, very related to how much concentration you can muster on whatever object of meditation you're meditating upon. So that's kind of the flow state where like even a soccer player or an artist will also feel something that's kind of similar, where it's like you merge with whatever you're doing. So yeah.
Yeah. So, well, where do we take this now? So you've experimented with different types of meditation, right? Do you have like a favorite or one that you think is best for people? Or what have you learned from trying out and sampling these different types of meditation?
Yeah, so I started with this meditation Anapanasati, which is just breath meditation. And that's a very good place to start, in my opinion, like for other people as well, also, because it's about developing the concentration. So no matter what kind of meditation type that you're going to end up sticking with, or whatever meditation types you're going to try, all meditations, or most meditations, almost all need some sort of concentration. So when you can develop that concentration, then you're going to be able to do that meditation better. So I think Anapanasati, just focusing on the breath unceasingly, that's like a really good, powerful meditation that everybody should try. And I think there is some also good arguments that was one of the main techniques that the Buddha taught. Um, so that's a really good one, but I've also tried, before I mention my favorite meditation technique, I've also tried different a few different other ones besides Anapanasati, right? Obviously. Um different types of mantras and stuff. There's also energetic practices, which are not actually meditation, but it's about changing the energies, like Shambhavi Mahamudra, which the very famous teacher online here, Sadhguru, teaches, which I've also tried, which is not so much a meditation, a concentrative practice, but it's a spiritual practice, and it really affects the energy and also your capability to concentrate and enter into these spiritual realms, but in different ways. Um, my favorite meditation technique, I would say, is actually the certain mantra, which is associated with this organization, Ananda Marga, that I'm a part of, which is the idea is that you concentrate on infinity, on the meaning, the mantra and the meaning behind the mantra, being infinite love is all there is, or consciousness is all there is. I feel like when you combine that element of concentration and you combine that with um the highest you could say, or a very potent, powerful object of concentration. You concentrate very deeply on a very powerful object, then your mind can go into really high states, places. So that's, I would say, is my favorite meditation, is this Bhavanam Kevalam mantra, and the different associated meditations with this Ananda Marga organization that they teach. But obviously I'm biased, so know that, because that's my tradition. But yeah, I would say that that's definitely my favorite. meditation technique.
Hmm. So where does meditation fall into a world that doesn't necessarily always allow for the time that you're talking about? Like I've heard some, there's some people I follow. I'm thinking of Britt Hartley for some reason right now, and she her content revolves around like non it's weird. She's her channel's called No Nonsense Spirituality, or what is it? Yeah, No Nonsense Spirituality, but she talks a lot about how, like, these stay-at-home moms, they have kids, they don't have an ounce of free time, and their spirituality is like serving their children and getting up and changing them, and that's their thing. And we have all these, like, you've got all these workers who, some of these guys put in 6 days solid work every week. They don't have time to sit for hours on end, or the last thing they would ever do is go on a retreat uh, out, to spend a week, when, the only free time they're going to get is probably going to be a family vacation or something like that. What is with is meditation somehow almost like an elite thing, or is it for the privileged, or can, like, what do you like? I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
I think in some ways it can kind of be. I mean, surely in the past it was, right? Because many people would work their whole lives and they wouldn't have any time and opportunity. Many people weren't literate, and so it was always the literate people who were associated with spirituality, with all the different spiritual texts. And they were often like the highest caste. Like in India, the Brahmins were the highest caste of people, the highest uh, level of society. We're living in the highest level of society. So today, stuff has shifted. I think it's more possible for people. But obviously, not everybody's life situations are the same. Some people might even have some disabilities that might not even allow them to practice meditation at all. So to say that meditation is available equally to every single person, or spirituality is not it's kind of hard to it's kind of hard to say that. Um, I think that the consciousness, the energy kind of does provide for us if we are really genuinely seeking that, and taking some steps, practical steps in order to seek that. I think regarding, the average person who's just working all the time, I think most people can find more time than they would probably believe. That you
Mm.
don't need that much time for sitting down formal meditation. But obviously, like you were saying, there's other types of spirituality where serving your children can be a spiritual act. Serving people, you can make your daily life also a spiritual act. Even in your daily work, you can be thinking about God, you can be present, you can be conscious. So I would say that for the determined mind who's really on fire for God, as a Christian would say, or who's really pious, or really
Burning
alive
with
for
the
for
Dharma,
these.
or what's the term?
Yes, yes. Then yeah, it's possible for everybody, I think, but it might be more difficult for a lot of people.
Um, uh, okay, so what led you into meditation, and why should people do it? Like, what led you into it, and what types of people should, or should anyone? Is there a should involved anywhere? And uh and and what is it, and what is spirituality?
I think everybody should absolutely do meditation, especially in this day and age where there's so much suffering and people don't really understand why they're suffering. They don't have much of a worldview. I think a lot of society doesn't even contemplate existence or why we're here or anything like that. Kind of everybody kind of goes with the flow, or accepts a kind of materialistic conception of the world. Um, I think spirituality is for everybody because intrinsically we're spiritual beings, meaning every aspect of ourselves, every cell in our body is seeking for goodness. So what do I mean by that? Every aspect of our being is desiring pleasure. That's the kind of the essential aspect. As we evolved and as we evolved as humans, pleasure was what kept us alive. We would seek out food, and that's a certain good for us, and that it kept us alive. It felt good, and we ran away from pain, all these dark things, from death. And so it's very intrinsic in our anatomy, in our down to every cell in our body that we seek pleasure, or you could
Hmm.
say some goods. And the Greek philosophers, they called God, they called it the highest good, and which I think is so like simple and so like beautiful. Called it the monad, the one, the highest good. And so like that's if we think about spirituality in those terms, then everybody is already spiritual, but it's just a question of how spiritually awakened are we, and how conscious have we made that process of seeking that highest good. We can seek it through the material things, and we can we can feel the pleasure of those lower forms, but then there's these higher forms, not just physical, but intellectual, emotional, spiritual, which are more meaningful, more subtle, more beautiful, more pleasurable, even possibly if you make some effort. And so I think it's meant for everybody, and everybody is spiritual. I think everybody should meditate, and I think that's what spirituality is. It's just about seeking the highest good of realizing your oneness with all this creation, that it's all um, desiring goodness and just embodying that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Good answer. Yeah, I've noticed with some of your content, you like to throw in a little bit of Christianity stuff sometimes there. Is there a background there with Christianity, and how do you blend the two with kind of like your Eastern practices?
I don't have a background with that. I was pretty much raised atheist, but it's always fascinated me because I think from when I started to get into spirituality, I was always like worried about, then I began to become worried about like hell or something. Like I don't know, like I just like I maybe there's some sort of kind of pull that Christianity kind of can put on some people, and most people aren't affected by it. But
Hmm.
maybe I kind of started to become a little bit affected by it, even though I never became Christian or anything like that. But I definitely do think that there is a lot of similarities in all religions. That when you're speaking about God, about something infinite, that well, that if you that the infinite and God is something that all religions share, some version of that, whatever form that takes on. And Christianity has had a lot of different saints and teachers who I think are very potent and very powerful and have some actually really good advice for an Eastern for a practitioner of spirituality who practices Eastern spirituality. I think a lot of Christianity today is very shallow, lots of some Protestant strains, maybe it can be a little shallow and make a lot of atheists, but there's also, Eastern Christianity and Eastern Catholics and Eastern Orthodox brands of spirituality, which are very deep and
Yeah.
almost experiential, kind of like Western, kind of like Eastern spirituality.
Yeah, Eastern Orthodox, kind of like mystical, some of the stuff that they talk
Yes,
about there.
yes.
Hmm. The mystical stuff is interesting to me. Like I've meditated before. Spent a good amount of time in solitude, like meditating and dealing with like shadow content in my mind and in my body, like somatically, like working out resistance issues within my body and stuff like that. And generally, you know what I mean, like in an undisturbed state, like I can my nervous system can relax a little bit, and if there's nothing impending, it's like, I can exist pretty peacefully. But I noticed this thing of like, recloaking with the ego, going out into the world, like, putting on a face or bringing forth a character. And, a lot of it's like just old conditionings and patterns. That's all that's spilling out half the time. But when it gets to the mystical stuff, like you're getting into sort of like deep stage realization or deep stage awakening type stuff, sort of like how you mentioned bliss, like some bliss state. Like I'll put it this way, not being ego identified in my own spare time where no one's looking at me, not being ego identified and just getting a chance to chill out and relax uh is awesome. Is such a like prize compared to how I spent my 20s and into my 30s, like in utter angst all the time, or just a lot of suffering and mitigating it very unhealthily. But crossing over into some sort of mystical state, like the idea of mystical. And I wonder if sometimes a lot of that gets uh, muddied up through language because it's like, okay, well, how would I describe how I am? Like, what if all of a sudden I was suddenly asked to like describe how I'm feeling when I'm most just sort of idling, sitting here idling, you know what I mean? And when you first have some of your first state shifts over into like a more present awakened state, you're like, oh, this is a lot like how it was when I was a kid. Like no narrative, you know what I mean, other than the narrative I'm like literally talking about now, or a narrative that's crafted post hoc or whatever, like afterwards when you're kind of like reconstructing or oscillating an ego a little bit. But the idea, but like, could we talk a little bit about you're entered into some mystical state and you are now experiencing the fancy language, like non-dual states or some sort of cosmic consciousness or some sort of like um flooding of love or something like that within the body. I was just wondering if we could discuss about something to do with that a little bit. Like it's not that hard to imagine that if you just stop panicking and ruminating, you'll be calm. Like I think a lot of people could relate to that. They'd be like, "Oh, I can literally turn the volume down on my ego." But it's another thing to talk about like peak states, like a peak state that might happen from like a rigorous meditation session or happen in like a prolonged Vipassana retreat. Like, how would you describe one of those states? Like a really mystical state, Have you had those, many of those? Is it something that you can just choose to do through some sort of practice?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's good. When I was younger and I was first doing the Anapanasati, that I think was kind of the what got me out of that ego state, that kind of first, I don't know if you want to say stage or what you want to call it, of spirituality. You were kind of talking about one aspect where you're kind of getting out of the ego, and one aspect where you're actually entering into those higher bliss states, or whatever you want to call it. And both are really valuable. It's kind of even difficult for me to contemplate or think about how they are related, or I feel like it's good to develop both, kind of that quietness of mind, and also that that concentrated mind on the infinite, like to have both, where it's like you're entering into silence and the ego and all these thoughts are gone, and then also you're concentrated and also thinking about, or focusing on, or contemplating the highest. So it's kind of the both, like an active and a passive kind of side of
Yeah.
spirituality. What the those states are are like is, it's very hard to describe, because it's beyond the mind, right? It's like you can try and put the infinite into a box, because then even the word infinite, we kind of have some conceptions, and that's what the intellect does naturally. It makes boxes. And
Hmm.
but when you're talking about something like that, there's no boxes. So that's kind of that's it's a very strange thing. And many saints and teachers have described with adjectives all these states very beautifully and very wonderfully. Mm.
Why do you think it's always painted as beautiful?
Um,
Is it ever painted as scary? Like, dear God, there's no boundaries.
um, I'm sure it must be, yeah, scary, yeah, for sure,
Yeah,
100%,
yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Like, yeah, scary, like you could say awe, scary, I mean, blissful, but definitely can sometimes be more on that. Like you look up at a skyscraper and it's like, whoa, like that's you're right under it, and it's like that's intimidating.
Yeah, two
Um,
guys drop acid, and one guy's like freaking out, and then the other guy's just dancing naked in the mud. You know what I mean? Uh, yeah, like interpretations probably vary, right? But for a lot of people, those words are very familiar, right? Bliss and awe and love and unity or oneness or something like that. Like they get thrown a lot around a lot.
But
Um,
it's probably good to also, warn of the other stuff too, right? Where it can also be a challenge at times, right? You're gonna have to face some challenges when you're going through some of this
but they're
stuff.
promptable. Like a state like that seems to be somewhat promptable. Like it's weird. To somebody that's on fire, simply being put out is nice. You know what I mean? Like somebody that's like suffering, simple awakening or like a hey, you don't have to reel away with this ego. You know what I mean? That alone, I think sometimes that contrast, people be like, this is bliss, man. I'm liberated from some kind of ego hell. But it seems like when it comes to the stuff that, you know, it gets dicey. It's like maybe some people upon having an awakening or something like that, they right away that the body goes whole hog or their system or whatever goes all in, and then they generate a really blissed out like cosmic state or something like that. And then maybe other people never do, but I'm interested in the idea of prompting that or doing something to sort of cause that. And you talked a lot about focus and stuff like that. Um, so
yeah.
what can we say about that? Like, is that something people, what's the intent? Is the intent to have a peak state? Is the intent to, what's the intent, you know?
That's a good question. I would say I feel like my intent is for those kind of peak states. I know lots of, I mean, there's many different ideas, and especially in modern day spirituality, New Age spirituality, there's been kind of a lot of resistance towards um, desire or chasing peak states or um, kind of everything is love and light kind of spirituality and that kind of all those things. And maybe for good reason most of the time, maybe for bad reasons, but um, I think the goal is I think the goal is God union, consciousness, enlightenment. And sometimes those states can be indicators that you are making some progress in that moment. And sometimes also I've had very blissful states that I didn't feel like were spiritual or that were like purifying, you could say, or that were making spiritual progress. Like, for example, if
Hmm.
you just smoked weed your whole life and did alcohol, well, maybe one person might could somehow become enlightened from that. But I think most people that would be more spiritually degenerating. It would feel very good and very blissful. But so definitely like there's this kind of idea in lots of religions and ideologies that there's pleasurable experiences and there are painful experiences, and not always are the pleasurable experiences that which leads to the most pleasure and purity over time. Um, Sometimes it can do that, sometimes it cannot do that, and same for the painful experiences. Sometimes they can be actually good for you, good for the overall pleasure of your life over your whole life. And
Mhm.
sometimes they can be very degenerating. So the moment to moment pain or pleasure isn't always an indicator of whether that is um, purifying and helping you grow spiritually. Um, I kind of forgot exactly how you worded the original question, but
No,
I
that
don't
was
know.
such a good answer, actually. Yeah, because we were sort of talking about peak states, you know what I mean? And quality of peak state varies. It's true. Like, you could smoke some weed and drink and be like literally like in some sort of Shangri-La in your mind, like blissed out, but there's a crash to that. It's sort of like it's a compromise compared to what's possible cleanly. And yeah, like how good it didn't purify you. It didn't purify anything, and there's a distinct difference there too. Because part of this discussion, I don't think if we've even talked about it yet, is, in my opinion, is the notion of sustainability. What's sustained here? What is really learned and embodied? Or you could say like what's been embodied or what's been simply thought about and talked about. That
Yeah,
matters.
yeah, yeah. I think the Greek philosophers also were very practical in how they kind of discuss stuff like in terms of the highest good. And so, we can talk about enlightenment, but for them, what their goal was the good life. So they saw that certain painful things and certain pleasurable things would either lead to more pain or more pleasure over an extended duration of time. So they wanted to live the most pleasurable life possible, and that a statement sounds kind of not so
Obvious.
yes, not it's definitely not so obvious. A lot of people don't know that. But also it sounds even counter to like a spiritual kind of idea to live the most pleasurable life possible. That sounds like, which I
Carnal
think is
living.
already what you're saying. Sorry?
Carnal living. Carnal, like you're
Carnal. Yeah,
seeking.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so you want to seek out the most pleasurable life o over duration. So you can be carnally living and you're um you're going to be extremely depressed, extremely lots so much pain in your mind and your emotions. But when they speak of a pleasurable life, they don't mean pleasure in that sense. They mean the highest pleasures, even describing love and the emotions and these things as pleasures. And perhaps they're more than that, more meaningful than that, but they kind of fit all those things into that category of pleasure. So yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Well, even like it's weird. Like when it comes to ancient scriptures and stuff like that, I take a lot of them with a grain of salt, no matter who it is, whether it's Jesus or Buddha talk. It's not like I'm trying to be disrespectful. I'm trying to think about the time period, the time that they've existed, what would have like caused a character like that to emerge, all these different things. And when it comes to like living a life of pleasure or living like a some sort of best life, like all of us are seemingly going to get old. Like every human, who knows? Maybe we made the cut and we're going to live in a time when nobody has to even die or something like that. I don't sit around entertaining that too long, but I'm saying we're probably all going to get old and die, and I'm getting older and you notice certain chronic pains and stuff like that. And there is a relief in all the things that purify people as they get older. Like sometimes you'll see a person that's just white knuckling their entire life. They're old and they're gnarled. But there's a lot of old people that have just naturally chilled out, that life has purified them and humbled them and done all kinds of things to make them sort of egoically detached. And so the pain is more tolerable. But pain is pain, you know what I mean? Like it's possible that you could see clearly and be awakened and still be in a lot of physical pain. Uh, it's probably possible that you would have some hang-ups or culturally miss something that, I'm just rambling right now, but what am I trying to
I
round right
I
now?
I mean, I could say something before you
Go
kind
for
of
it. Go cut me
finish
right
out
off.
that.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah. Like pain is actually, in a way, is actually very awareness invoking. Like I
Yeah.
think there's the comment there, there's the I don't remember who said this, but like your finger on a stove for a minute versus your a minute with an attractive lady is like that 1 minute that you're on that your fingers on that stove, it's or their hands on the stove, it's going to be like forever. And so you're
Hmm.
very aware, very, very in
Hmm.
like very, very there. And so and it seems like those bliss states, they can kind of just pass you by and go by very quickly. And so I think it's also kind of when we're talking also about infinite this infinite consciousness and these God states, and also this egoless state and this quiet mind and the awareness of the kind of thought patterns and getting some distance from that, that we also maybe want to try and somehow cultivate those together, that awareness and also that bliss, so that neither of them are kind of lacking. Um, it's kind of I'm just kind of rambling and
Yeah,
just
no,
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 that's
saying
okay. I
like
wanted to say,
that's
yeah.
right.
I want to jump in and just say, like I don't know about, like, I think the God Union thing is cool and worth something looking into, but what the heck is going on with reality? Because it's so hard, it appears, to get to these states. And not everyone gets there. People die unawakened all the time. Probably more people will die unawakened than awakened. So why is reality creating this fabric? Why is it? Why do we have this thing where it's reality is bringing into existence so much suffering to try and get it back to some state of releasing all of it? Like, do you have any ideas or perspectives on, like, the construct of reality, what it's doing, why it's going through the process it's going?
Yeah, so I think like lots of Christians will explain away sin and pain and darkness by saying that we have free will. So it's because we choose these things. That's a interesting perspective. There's also been some counter arguments to that. Well, then why, natural disasters, for example, why are there natural disasters? Like that's very painful, very awful, and completely unrelated to our free will. So, um, and so I think it might just be some cosmic arrangement that we live in an earth that is not, we don't live on the sun in a perfect heaven. We live in on a planet, on a sphere with dark aspects and light aspects. We live with, so I don't know. It's hard to really understand why that is. I'm sure I've had some thoughts about it in the past, but no solid explanation is coming up to me right now. And but yeah, I don't pretend to know any of this stuff either anyway. So
I,
I'm
I
just
I
kind
think
of
this might
guessing
be
my best.
I think this might be
Yeah.
pertinent in what we're kind of triangulating here. So, in the right state, pain isn't what it was in a different state. I mean, like, what is that even like? What am I saying here? It's like if you're truly calmed down and your parasympathetic nervous system is like kicked in, or your vagus nerve is like chilled out, or whatever the good version of that is. I'm just like putting a veneer of science over this stuff for a sec. You can be in a state where you're like, yeah, my leg hurts. It's even kind of fascinating. Like it's there's not much narrative around even the little aches and pains in my body, or even something that would usually stress me out. If your head's right and your nervous system is idling nicely, even pain can be thought of differently. But if you take a half of a frog and the top half is missing and all you got is the legs, and you put it towards a pot of boiling water, its legs kick away from it. Like, we sort of involuntarily, you could learn the siddhi of like putting your hand right into fire and then pulling it out, and then you got like a stump for a hand because you burned your own hand off. Like, it starts to get a little crazy when it comes to pain. But I think a lot of these are things like, it's like natural disaster. A lot of people die. It's catastrophic. But like, we dole out little apocalypses for other creatures all the time. I had to wipe out the whole ant colony because it was building in my backyard, you know what I mean? Or I consume so many metric tons of meat throughout the course of my life. All creatures that, suffered in their lifetime, a lot of them, or were just in pain, you know? And I just think there's a distinction here between pain and suffering. It's like, I think with one perspective, you could look at the checkered world that we're in and all the different versions and dramas and challenges and puzzles and surprises and all these different things. And it's just not perceived the same way depending on where your head's at, where your mind's at, and where your body's at. And there, I do think that you can attain some awareness and some awakening and stuff like that, where you're in it, but it's not on the inside. It's not something you can share. It's not something you could go, it's not like a blanket you share with somebody. It's where you've arrived at, where all these different issues are, they're not processed the same way as somebody who has literally just been taken advantage of by the world. You know what I mean? Like entrained to first act out, what is it? Conditioned to believe the ego, conditioned to believe the stress and the worry, and it goes from pretending and aping what you see the adults doing to you're not embodying awareness, you're embodying ego. You're possessed by these things now, and it's absolutely pertinent that you're a success and that you destroy your enemies and you're up all night, strategizing. And some people do that forever. And then some people just go, this is hell. This is hell. I don't feel good doing this. And so they start finding these other things. And then I feel like the result of that sometimes is just a different processing of these same things. There's people in a room going, why, if God's so good, why all this suffering? And there's one guy in there going, it's not a matter of that. Like this is just how it is. We're here, and I'm not going to become neurotic about it. And some people do. Like you see whole religions get crafted where they're like, I don't even breathe without a mask on because I don't want the dust that goes into my face to suffer or something like
There's
the
bugs.
bugs or whatever. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying that seems egoic to me. That seems like you're actively believing. Every day you're waking up with the intention of causing no harm, with the notion that somehow that sort of perfection will have an effect or something like that. But whether you're breathing through a cloth or not doesn't stop volcanoes from erupting. And whether you're breathing through a cloth or not doesn't stop the lion from tackling the gazelle. And so I think just lived experience changes depending on some of these things, like how much you've followed this path, this spiritual path, which oftentimes people say, don't believe me, go try it, right? How
Yeah.
many times you heard that? They say, don't just believe what I'm saying, go test it for yourself. And that's a pretty interesting claim. That's not the same thing as the political guy saying, just believe me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To actually invite somebody to say, don't believe me, try it and see what happens to you. I don't know. I offer that rant to this conversation.
It's good.
Um,
I like it.
well, I'm curious, Addy, like with all that has been said there, on this current states of the world, do you follow what's going on in the world? Have you chosen to disconnect from it, or are you seeing it? Are you
Hmm.
fascinated by anything that's going on in the world right now?
Um, yeah, I never really watched news much ever, but for sure I've, been looking a little bit into the Epstein stuff, which is crazy. And also on the good news side of things, the all the like well good or actually I don't know, I should hold my tongue, but with that, but all the robotic stuff and the AI and all of that, which can be sounds very utopian or very dystopian. So
Depending on who you are, right?
Everything's dividing now. You
Yeah.
can't even say anything without being a division.
yeah.
Yeah. I find it totally fascinating too. I'm totally into the AI stuff. I'm such a nerd when it comes to the robotic stuff. It's fascinating. I believe in like techno spirituality. I think some of these tools are actually going to help us maybe awaken quicker in the future and you know, allow us to help us get to these states. And I don't know if it's going to be transhumanism or what it's going to do, or if we are just the next evolutionary state, step for the next conscious robot beings. Who knows? It could be, you
I mean, everything's vibration energy. We're vibration energy, and so is my phone. So
know.
um, maybe one day I'll be the phone. I don't know. So, guess we'll see.
Well,
Um, either way, I'm very excited about it because if a robot can do all of the work that I don't want to do, I'm thrilled about that. I just don't want to suffer because of it. I don't want to, I don't want people to be out of jobs or whatever else that could happen.
Yeah,
So
not be able to eat but have all the answers.
can't
yeah.
can't we redefine the world? People always jump to that. That's gonna take all the jobs. I'm like, stop with the jobs thing. Like maybe we should start thinking about like what humanity might look like without being designated jobs 24/7. Like maybe we would pursue our creative aspirations. Maybe we would become more like Star Trek, where we go out and we explore and we work simply for the betterment of humanity. Rather than
That's a long
having a job that I gotta go punch into every day that I hate.
that's a long way away.
Yeah.
If we tried Star Trek now, it would be lame. It'd be like there's no other aliens to talk to.
I've always found it very weird. People who are really stuck on having a job, like they're like, oh, they're gonna take the jobs away. No, like if we had money, if we set up some system, I think that that's a great situation. The good part of having a job, the good of a job is not the job itself, but the fruits of the job. And so if robots can do all that stuff, then fantastic. Part of what being human is not the stuff that we do to survive, but it's all the stuff that we do after that, like you were saying, the arts and
Yeah,
culture, exploration, whatever, all these things that make us human in inventing things and doing all awesome stuff. So yeah, I think that if the jobs go away, that'd be great. Yeah.
that's right. Bring on the golden age.
No, man. I've had some good job positions before. I've been enlightened 3 times at a job. And then some project manager will come along and go, this guy's enjoying himself too much. Let's shake it up. Hey, what one thing do you night like to do? Oh, that's what you're doing today. Like, I think the humans make things shitty a lot of times. You know what I mean? Like, there's not like I was sweeping my kitchen the other day, and I was like, this is kind of nice. Like, I think about the younger people in our lives and how much they bitch and moan and complain sometimes about different tasks, but there's all this like idea of fun versus bad. If you just loosen that perspective a little bit and are present in whatever you're doing, I think there's a lot of tasks, even physically manual labor type tasks that they're not suffering if the ego's at bay. You know what I mean? If the ego's not there. But the thing is, we're such social creatures that we co-regulate each other. So we come into each other's things and we start telling each other what we're doing wrong. And then, we get dramatic about things and we get offended and we get greedy and all this stuff. But by and large, there's a lot of different things about just being a human. Like even that scripture, I think it's like a Buddhist one that's like before awakening, chop wood and gather water. After awakening, chop wood and gather water. Like, the mundane is still good. It's just it's when you're hunched over doing a task and you're thinking about your tax return at the same time and thinking about, the person you offended last night at the get together, that starts to become hell. That's come on, man, don't put him through that. He's already focusing on a job. He can't also be thinking about all the dramatic things in their life. I think a lot of our suffering in society is like, you know, is our perspective on it. Because I know this is probably not a very popular opinion, especially now in this 2026 internet world where we all have a voice and everybody's yelling at each other. But I'm saying this has got to be one of the best times for many of us at least. I don't want to be insensitive. This is the cutting edge of reality. This is the very cuttingest of edges. I wouldn't even go back 2 days. I like what I have now compared to what
Like
I
they they used to have a Coliseum, and now we have a Coliseum like in our hands, and we can watch
Yeah, right.
the
Yeah.
events.
If you want, or you can, when you get home, you can chill out and sit and touch grass. There's when you look at human history, a lot of it just seems absolutely crazy. Like
Mm.
most people were starving.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like 90% of the time. And so I kind of am just grateful for where we're at. I understand everybody's desire to make it even better and make things fair. Like I'm not just cool with how our hierarchies run and the types of stuff that gets associated with power. Uh, but this is a super long-winded digression about being able to be enlightened even if you've got a job or something like that, or being able to be enlightened even if you've got some kind of a task at hand. The only thing that could interrupt that is if you've got to re-click an ego back together because your boss needs to see anguish in your face. You know what I mean? And that's how human social, it's literally that bad to me. A lot of human social dynamics. We're mammals and we need each other, but some of the things that we need from each other in our sordid mess of humans is like, hey man, be a human. I want to see like that you're reacting to me.
Yeah.
Humans do this. Am I out in left field here, or am I actually
No,
making a
no,
solid
you're
point that you
totally
guys
bang
get?
on. You see it all the time.
I don't know. Addy, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's some Sadhguru quote that, suffering people create suffering people. Like if you're suffering, then the people around you are gonna spread that suffering.
Yeah.
I think it's very good that whatever action that we're doing, we're working or whatever, that we're present, like you say. And also, you can also, like for me, I will contemplate God, or, I would say contemplate the infinite throughout my day. Like I would be, everything I'm looking at is the consciousness, the infinite consciousness. Everything I'm doing is with that desire for that. And also the third aspect is it's working through me. And I try and have that ideation, that contemplation going through my day. And that makes everything great, whatever you're doing. I think maybe a lot of the strife, I don't know if I have a strife about having a job or whatever, but for me, like a lot of the strife about having a job is the kind of intellectual aspect of it, where it's like we all want to be better and grow and expand. And I feel like as a society, very soon there will be robots who can replace me. So it feels like if I'm doing something that robots are very soon going to be able to do, it's like, well, why am I doing this right now?
Dig a hole,
Just
fill a
build,
hole.
build a
Dig a hole,
robot.
fill a hole. What's
Yeah.
this investment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we want to always be better and doing more. So I think that's kind of why I'm doing this YouTube and trying to do this stuff. Because like I'm like, what is my purpose? What is my how can I actually serve society in a society where, all this stuff is changing? And for me, one of the biggest ways is through expanding the consciousness. And yeah, that's kind of, yeah. So,
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, totally fair.
Well, Adi, I just want to say thank you so much for coming out today, being on the show, and sharing all your insights and your stories. One thing we like to do at the end here is kind of give our guests the last say. So, for everyone else who's out there watching, maybe if you have one overarching message, would you kind of just sprinkled in something there at the end there? But if you have one last word you want to leave with our audience, we'll give you the final word, and then maybe you can let them know where they can find you, what you got going on, and all that good stuff.
okay, yeah, I guess I'll say, I don't know if it's Shankaracharya or somebody who says that doesn't matter how you find the infinite, how you become enlightened, how you achieve union, doesn't matter how, but do it. That's kind of his quotes, very loosely quoted. But so that's what I think is so worthwhile, that the infinite is something that you can't imagine. It's nice, it's great. Not from my experience, but I've had some degrees of that. So definitely seek that out. And yeah, that's all. And you can find me, Adi Asaya. I have a Discord community as well, the Cosmic Caves. And I have a few channels, my link tree, you can find in my YouTube bio. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, Adi, thanks so
Namaskar.
much. It was great having you on the channel, man.
Yeah.
Thanks.